Yay.
Hey,
Okay, we're back.
All right.
Technical difficulties all done.
Yes. Jen was trying to just private live stream us from her page, but we all like to be with all you ladies. So welcome. Happy Monday morning, January 22nd, 2018. We are all here this morning. We've got Jen Johnson. Her head's going to be down half the time because we're making her type all the amazing, thoughtful, thought-provoking things that our guest speaker is going to say, or that myself, I won't remember I said it. So I like to, we've got Cece over there. Her and I both decided to go hatless today. Next week we'll be something different. And Jamie down below, she's going to do a rap at the very end. So stay tuned for those who'd like to come out and beatbox out with some cool thoughts. And then our visitor today, we've got Jenna.
Yay.
All right. We're super excited to have her. She's, I'm sure, feeling nervous because we've actually gone live now. This is our second live. We're excited. The reason that is, just a quick little warm up, is Jen is practicing sleep hygiene. And I didn't even ask her about it because I wanted to do it live on air so we could all get the answers of what that means. To me, every time you say hygiene, I just think of shower. So I'm like, are you sleeping in a shower? What's a sleep hygiene? What does that mean?
You're seriously going to go there? Oh, Reagan.
Is it something bad? I honestly.
No, it's not bad. And we will go there. I think it actually is really vital we talk about it since we are a community focused on women. And actually not getting enough sleep is an epidemic. So I will just leave it there. I'm trying to retrain my brain on how I fall asleep.
Oh, good.
And when I fall asleep and when I wake up and the whole 2 hours before you go to bed, dimming the lights, it's a whole process. And I've just gotten into some really bad habits. So I'm retraining my brain and it's painful.
Wow.
That's the short of it. Okay. I'll tell you the long story when we go off live.
All right. I've told thankfully, my sleep trainer is my iPhone. I never leave it anywhere. And it actually tells me, it has a little alarm because it shows the max amount of sleep I want to get. So there's a little alarm that goes off, it's almost time for you to go to sleep. So
that's good.
Whatever. That has nothing at all to do what we want to talk about today, except we are talking about how we deal with interruptions in life, the unexpected. And if you are a mom with young kids or just kids, period, interruptions in sleep and unexpectedness seems very closely tied. So see, we all brought it back in. But we're just excited that, one of the great things that God does is he just connects us with people that we have an area that kind of comes into our hearts, and that God says, you know what? I have somebody that just has walked through so many things and they're still smiling and love me. And Jenna's actually one of them. So Jenna, do you want to just share a little bit about yourself and just some of the interesting paths that God's taken you? You're not even originally from Montana, right?
Right. Yeah. I'll just give you guys big picture. So I grew up in Colorado Springs. And my husband was there to go to the New Life School of Worship there. So we met because we're both night owls. So we were both the only two people at the World Prayer Center after midnight, pretty much every night, which is so funny. So we didn't actually talk for many weeks, but we met, and I was 18 and he was 22. I had just graduated high school. And we met, and both of us were just done, let's get married. We hadn't, we didn't flirt. It was just, we just
all
met.
All the single ladies are going to stay late at church now.
Yeah.
All prayer time at church.
No, actually, my friends did not think he was real at first because we didn't have any overlapping social circles. The only place I knew him was the middle of the night at the World Prayer Center. So they were is this a real guy? I was he is. But anyhow, so... Awesome. So I did YWAM right after that in New Zealand in the South Pacific. And then my husband got a job as a worship pastor in Washington, D.C. So we got married right after I finished YWAM. So I was 19 and he was 23. So we moved there on staff at a church. And then we moved back to Billings in 2008. So we've been here about 10 years now. And we've just been involved in ministry in several different contexts. So if you're local, you've probably seen the different hats. And then now he's a general contractor and I do marketing stuff, and we're still involved with ministry, but more of a passion project. And we are expecting our unexpected fourth in a couple of months here. And we recently decided to try homeschooling. So I homeschool in the morning and work in the afternoon. And we have an au pair coming in 2 weeks. So that's my big picture. I don't know. Yeah. What our life is like.
Can you tell us what that is? Because my husband read that on Facebook and he's like, what does Jenna have coming?
I know. Okay. So we're doing a feature on it in Simply Family. So my article for that's due tomorrow. So you can look. But basically, so au pair actually means second set of hands. So it's a foreign exchange program. And so it's where people from a different country want to come live with you as part of your family. So they want like a full immersion experience, like they eat meals with you, go on vacation with you, like they're fully included. Mm-hmm. And you have to cover all of their expenses. And then you get 45 hours of like help and childcare for about $200 a week. So basically we found out we were going to have 4 kids. We're like, we're going to need help, like a lot of help, more help than we have now.
Yeah, so smart.
So we just thought, I always wanted to live abroad. I loved living in other cultures. So we just thought it would make it just more of like a fun, exciting experience for the kids and for us, and would help. And yeah. So that's in 2 weeks that she gets here from Colombia.
I feel like I want to au pair out my kids. Is 11 too young for her to go live with somebody? Pay for it. Take care of her. When I started
posting about it, I have friends that have done it who went to go, like, it's a great, like, most people do it for language skills. Mm-hmm. So, like, if you took French for all of high school and college, but you want to be fluent, it's a really great way. Like, go live there, you have a guaranteed job, your expenses are covered for a year, and then you come back fluent. So, our person is 24. She just got an accounting degree. And if you go back fluent in English, just your opportunities are way better. So,
yeah.
Nice.
That's exciting. Well, we will post some links in the comments on anybody that's interested in that.
Yeah.
I love that conversation with your husbands tonight. And by the way, I'm actually going to be an au pair in France. I've always wanted to learn French. And take care of their family. But that's kind of an overview. So you obviously don't have a lot of time on your hands, but I mean, it's funny when I get to ask the questions because I kind of know the answers to some of these things, but Jen and I were kind of talking. This was not always, was this where you thought you would be when you're in those late night prayer meetings with your soon to be husband who you're not even noticing because you guys are so caught up in the spirit and just worshiping Jesus? Because that's how it was for me too. Yeah, I didn't even notice him. It took me a good 30 minutes. I mean, I heard the word single, I was like, I'm there. But I mean...
No, not at all. I mean, actually, I feel like we have that discussion often where we're just like, wow, this is not what we thought our life would be, but in so many good and wonderful ways. But just that where I thought I would be when I was 18, like at pretty much every stage, it's been different turns than we anticipated. So I can think of probably 5 or 6 things that were just, completely different than what I ever would have thought or anticipated. Mm-hmm. Not even close to what I thought.
If you thought like, what would be one area, like for you, even one example that you could think about, like where it just, things didn't necessarily turn out how you wanted?
Yeah, for sure. Well, the most recent one that I was recently coping with was just the pregnancy thing. We were ready to be done after 2 kids. Like after 2, we were like, we're good. But we had a friend who was an empty nester, and she was crying and was like, you think you want 2 now, but in 20 years, you're going to wish you had more. You're going to be devastated. So we're like, okay, we don't want a baby. We're going to push for 3. We'll make it through the first year and then we'll be done. So that was our 3rd. So right when we hit the 1-year mark, we were just so ready to move on and enter into a new season. I had new business opportunities that I had been waiting for, and I thought, I can't do this stuff till I'm done having babies. So I just made all of these huge business changes. We go on like a trip for the first time without kids in forever. And then of course that's when we get pregnant, which, so it was just a shock just dealing with that just, it will be, yeah, for me specifically, I feel like a baby, for me to be fully invested the way I'd like to be, I think requires dropping so much. Do you know what I mean? Like I remember with my first kid thinking it will be fine, I'll quit. Like, well, I'm like extroverted overachiever here. So I'm always involved in like a lot of things. So I'm like, I'll quit half of it, it'll be great. And then when you have one kid, it was like, I actually have to be done with everything. Like, it actually requires all of my time and attention. Mm-hmm. So I think just coping with the personal demands of, I really think you have to lay down your life for probably 2 years of not sleeping and all this stuff. So I think just coping with going back to that was a big one. But I can think of, I'll just throw a couple out there real quick. First of all, talking about when I met my husband, I always wanted to do missions. I always wanted to live abroad. I never, ever thought I would want to live in the US. But I was still pretty happy with Washington, D.C. because it's so, like, I was going to George Mason. There's people from 30 countries there. So we had like Muslim neighbors. There was like a Sikh in a turban that sat in front of me, like people from all over the world. So I was so excited. And then our joke was always, Josh, I would say maybe we could move to Africa. And Josh would say maybe we could move to Billings. And we're like, whatever the Lord says. So Billings was like my place that I would never want to move. And Africa was Josh's place he would never want to move. And so I just remember, like, I was going to school for international development. And I remember he was gone, and it was the first time praying about it. And I knew the Lord was calling us here. And it was just the last thing I wanted to do. Like, I couldn't do international development. There was no other cultural stuff. There wasn't a chance for, I don't know.
Billings is not the cultural mecca that I knew it to be when I grew up in Montana, unless it's changed all of a sudden.
Really not. Yeah. So that one, just realizing like my life wasn't going to be international or missions or anything. My life was going to be, homogenous small town culture. Yeah. Was a big change. And I know, we had several ministry situations where I know that we were where the Lord called us to. We were doing everything we could do to be obedient, and stuff just kind of fell apart. Like it didn't work out the way that we wanted it to be. The things that we had hoped for, prayed for, labored for didn't happen. Like it just didn't. And just dealing with, like, what does that mean about me and about God and about life? And so yeah, I can think I could go into specifics on all of those stories, but yeah, there's been many times where my heart and my intent has been so invested in a direction, and then the Lord ended up putting us somewhere else. And sometimes just the loss and pain and heartbreak that can come with it. Although I wouldn't like fully, but I wouldn't say that that's defined my life though, because as soon you think it's going to be bad and it never is.
Right.
I mean, it's heartbreaking, but then there's so much goodness that you can't anticipate that comes in all of it. So I think it's more the transitions that are the hardest, like when you're having to, in your brain, switch gears. My life isn't what I thought it was going to be. And then once you're fully on board, all the good stuff comes. So.
Well, and I've noticed too, I mean, Cece, I'm going to put you on the spot, but
yeah.
Even the word transition, when she was talking about just how the transitions are hard, transition isn't necessarily like, I think we say transition, it's like, okay, I'm going to transition from making dinner to now eating dinner. Like we're talking minutes,
Right.
where I feel like, personally, I mean, what Jenna's talking about, transition can be like a longer period. Can you like elaborate on that even yourself? Like,
yeah. So something that we say around our house a lot and have for years is that we've learned to thank the Lord for his no, and which happens a lot. And it's not always a resounding no, but you look at your life, like what Jenna's saying, and you're like, well, I guess that was a no. Because I was thinking it was a yes, God, but it doesn't even so much look like a maybe. It sort of looks like a no. And sometimes it's a maybe first. And so when we pray around the house, we try to include that, because we've ended up, like what Jenna just said, being thankful for God's redirections. And so I was about to move a few years ago from Midtown Billings to a house that I had found. And the long and the short of it was, I found the house. I had all the paint colors picked out because I'm that girl. We did the inspection on the house, which caused a tree to be cut down and the electrical panel in the back to be fixed, which had all been done. So we are just about to close. I'm so excited. I've lived there. I've thought there. The way the light came in the kitchen, I had already cooked there. I was like, oh, Jesus. And then wham, 7 days before we're supposed to move in, something happens with our buyers. And I was like, oh no, Jesus. And so sad. And because there were some reasons that we needed to move. And it was a big deal for me, especially. So I go up to the house, this beautiful little yellow house, and I drive past it when I know that I'm not going to live there. I go there and I say, I'm going with you, Lord. I'm going to walk this disappointment with you. I'm crying all the way. I'm crying as I pull up to the house. And then in the driveway is my sweet realtor, who I love. She's a friend of mine, and the woman that's about to take my house. And they're walking towards me down the driveway. And I'm not going to cry because I want to celebrate. So, and the story with that woman is she needed to be out of her rental in 7 days. And my realtor was also working with her, and she loved the yellow house. So I said, you can have my inspection so you don't have to wait. You can have my closing date, and I'll send you to my friend that's my lender. Because the people that were moving out, a doctor and his wife, it had been kind of rough on them to make these changes. And I couldn't bear their disappointment too. And I just cried the whole way home. And I was like, and then I got to see that gal all through town for 3 or 4 times. I was like, how's the house? And this is not always the case, but where the Lord planted us 2 years ago is so much more who we are. That is not always the case, though. It doesn't always have a bow on it, and I'm not trying to put a bow on it. But I had to wait, and we found such a better house for who we are. But I did not know that as I was crying and heading back to my old living room. And I took all the colors, the paint colors, and just put them in a drawer for maybe another house another time. Yeah.
And really, that's almost like a 2-year transition. And so you're basically saying 2 years later, now you're like, wow, hey, look, we're in a better house.
It was.
Where, I mean, what we kind of talked earlier, Jenna, like what would be like in that midst of that disappointment time? Like what do you feel? Like what is going on when you get those like curveballs, the unexpected things? And when I say unexpected, it's like unexpected, Publishers Clearinghouse is at my door. It's like unexpected, the bank is calling me, or, you know.
Yeah, kind of like a loss. Yeah, I was thinking, we got to chat last night, so I was just thinking about examples this morning, and I think there's that moment for me where like things are still going like what you were saying. You think it might still work out, like it could all still be what you planned. And then there's this moment where the heaviness hits you and you just realize like this is not going to be what I thought, that like that my life is not going to be what I thought. This isn't what I hoped for or planned for, and this isn't what I thought the Lord had for me. And what do I do right now? How do I deal with that? And I was thinking of how we, like what sometimes the natural thing is to do, and then what else I think we can do. But first, I think for me is like denial, where you just don't want to accept it, or you don't even want to look at it. You don't want to acknowledge that that's reality. Or like if you're a parent and your kids aren't doing great, like sometimes you just want to look the other way. You don't want to fully look at the reality and acknowledge what's happening. And then I think that there can also be like a shame and an embarrassment. Like if things are starting to fall apart, it just feels embarrassing. You're like, we were confused or wrong, or we thought all this was going to happen and it's not. And it just, yeah, like I think you can take on shame or embarrassment. And then with that, I think you can even want to hide. Like you kind of, you just want to hide and not show people what's happening. And I really don't think we have to do that. I think that that if you're walking with the Lord, you can always live honestly and openly, even through heartbreak, even through disappointment, even through changes. I don't think you ever have to hide, no matter what the situation is. And then I think the other thing I've seen is sometimes these big changes come, it's a big loss or a big heartbreak, and you just think it's going to overtake you, that it's going to overcome you, or that it's going to be the word over your life, or it's going to be the direction for the future. And I don't think that's true either. And so with that, what I've learned is that I think that there is a certain boldness to just even embrace brokenness, and that it's a safe place to be broken with the Lord, that it's safer to be honest and to be broken with the Lord than it is to hide or look the other way or pretend or let a hard situation overtake you, that just like you would do at the beginning, that you can just fully bring it before the Lord. And it's okay to say that you're disappointed. Like, I think that's what I felt too. I remember, I think some of the ministry ones hit us the hardest, like just when things, like I said, that we had hoped for, labored for, given for, just didn't work out. And I think those were, it felt like I wasn't sure if I was allowed to say that out loud. Like that you weren't sure if you're supposed to just say like, yeah, it's all good. This is exactly what the Lord had for me. Like, I'm not disappointed at all. That wasn't true. I just have to be honest. So I remember there was a couple month period where we would see people at a coffee shop and they would say, "How are you doing?" And I would say, honestly, I'm heartbroken. Like we've given everything that we can. We've done our best to be obedient. Nothing that we've tried has worked, and I'm devastated. But I still believe that every word that God has said is true, and we're not going to let go, and we're not going to change. Yeah. I'm sad about it.
Yeah, yeah.
And I was so surprised that I think that I think a lot of people, I won't say everyone, but I think most people could connect with that more than anything else. Like there were so many people that could connect with, I'm doing my best to obey with the Lord and walk with him. Yeah. And there's areas that are still just like hurt or unfulfilled or disappointed. And I think it's just a relief to acknowledge that. And I don't think it means that you're a bad Christian or that God isn't faithful or that his word over your life isn't goodness and faithfulness, but that it's okay to walk through hard stuff. Like, I think that was one of my favorite passages is Psalm 16, and I love this so much. I'll just read you a couple verses, but it says, "The Lord is the portion of my inheritance and my cup." And I love one translation says, "You guard and maintain my lot. The boundary lines have fallen for me in pleasant places, and indeed my heritage is beautiful for me." But I can think of multiple times where I thought that it was all lost. And there were things that were legitimately lost that we didn't get back. Like there were things that were gone that were not going to be recovered. But thinking that might be my future, that like it's all gone. And I think in every situation I've just been stunned in the way that it's not, that God, nothing can take the inheritance that the Lord has for me. Every time that I've thought that it's lost or that a situation was whatever, wrecking my future or stealing things that I couldn't get back, it's never been true. I'm just so stunned that in the coming months or years, that no matter what has happened or what other people have done or what other situations have feel like they've taken from me, the Lord is always restoring, and his goodness and faithfulness is bigger and stronger than any harder, heartbreaking situation. So that's why I think it's even okay to be broken, because it's not the big picture or the long term or your identity or what you have to take on. Like you know that the Lord has goodness and faithfulness for you. You know that you're valued, and you know that you can still sometimes be heartbroken inside of that, and it's okay because it's temporary. Yeah. I'll tell you one other funny thing. Do you know, have you guys seen, there used to be that like depression commercial where it was the person with like a little cloud that would follow them around and where they go? Yes. I remember watching that and thinking, I feel like that, but about God's goodness, that I keep ending up in these different places that I didn't think I would be. And every time I turn around, God's goodness is there unexpectedly. Yeah.
We just love you. I just can't stop crying. We just love you, love you, love you. And Jenna, I see you around town all the time, and you walk up and I just feel like your brokenness is so beautiful. And you are just like, you're those verses that, you know, the like sort of the presence and the glory of God shows on a person's face. And that's why I thought of you. So I just thank you for breaking honestly.
Yeah.
I just thank you.
Oh, no, it's good. I think that like the one ministry heartbreak was the first time that it felt like, I mean, it was big enough that it was going to be hard to hide.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? So I think that was the first big risk of being openly disappointed or broken. And I just have to say, I was so surprised by just by people's responses. So even if that feels scary, I would tell you that my experience has been that people and God are amazing and often experiencing similar things that you are. And it's actually such an amazing bridge to connect with people and build, strengthen each other and build strong friendships. And it can be good. Oh, I'll read you. Here's one quote that has helped me so much.
Yes.
This is John Piper. He says, "Occasionally weep deeply over the life that you hoped would be. Grieve the losses, then wash your face, trust God, and embrace the life that you have." Which I just think is so good. That it's okay that when disappointment happens, it's okay to be sad and to grieve it, and then you don't have to stay there. Then you can wash your face, get up, and throw yourself fully into the reality that you do have. That so yeah, I know for me, even with the unexpected pregnancy, it helped a lot for me to say out loud, this is not what we planned. There is some loss. We're going to grieve it and let go, and we're fully on board. That it can be both at the same time. You don't have to pretend like it's all awesome, but you also don't have to be devastated forever either.
Yes. Yeah.
The thing that's been rolling in my head is like, you know, people sometimes forget what we say, but they always forget how we feel or how they feel when they're around us. And I feel like, you know, with women and people, we've all struggled through things. We so often don't show that struggling side. And, you know, I think as Christians, and especially when you're Christians in ministry and you and your husbands were leaders in ministry, it's like, there's something in us. It's like, okay, I don't want to tell you that I'm struggling because I don't want to affect your faith with Jesus. And I don't want to like bring you down. And I love the Lord, and it's going to, but in reality, like you said, I think once one person opens up, and I love how we do this every week with different topics, is really, we're trying to give everybody that's watching, rewatching, a forum to say, like, this is just reality. Like, we're struggling with this and disappointment. And these are like small disappointments. Like, you know, I ordered a Big Mac and they gave me a double cheeseburger. You know, I still go to McDonald's. But just that we had this idea that God did. You said something when we were talking on the phone. I wrote it down. I was like, it's just how we reconcile our reality with our dream. You know, God, like, we have this, you know, do you think that's totally God? The dreams that we have, the visions, the plans, the purpose is like we start thinking and we're like, we're going all in, God, I'm giving all my money, my time, my effort. I'm going to move to Billings, Montana for that international community that I'm going to discover somewhere there. And then it's like the reality is we wake up and every day we have to walk out whatever that transition time could be to get to that place where it is, you know? And sometimes the reality is a transition. So my super thoughtful friend down there, she can put her glasses on. So it's something deep is coming. No pressure.
This is a topic near and dear to my heart, and coming off of the last week, you could probably understand why as I introduced myself more, is that I came out a planner, but he had a plan to break that a little bit in me so that it can be really surrendered planning. And so I take a long time to learn things, apparently, because I'm 39. I feel like every year I get some kind of new aspect of learning in this area. But so disappointment, the difference between our expectation and our experience, that gap, what do we do with it? I just, as I'm listening to Jenna and her stories and going, oh, all those little phases that you talked about, you know, and then I was thinking I had a questioning phase of like, am I just dumb? Do I not hear right? You know what I'm saying? Like, do I have clogged ears? Am I like lacking something that I can't hear you? Like and then I would even question whether I should ever try to be obedient again. I'm like, am I really being obedient, or am I just pretending that I am? Because I think I heard something, so I'm going to try and be obedient, and maybe I'm not really even being obedient. I would question all those things. So then I had this fear that would build up, you know? And so anyway, I go back through, you know, as you're talking, and I, like you said, Jen, I just these broken places and how people can relate to those stories and relate to the places that you were. I think the one thing that always keeps coming back to me, and I wrote it on a chalkboard and had to have it as my focus for 3 years. I told you I was stubborn and I'm a slow learner. So it was on a chalkboard for 3 years, is that why would I think that my dream or expectation is actually the thing that would most satisfy me, most fulfill me, or would have the greatest impact? Why do I think that what I can come up with is the thing? Why do I think that why do I hold so tight to that? And I think there was this lesson of 3 years of going, could you actually, this is God speaking to me, could you actually believe that I know your heart better than you? Could you believe that what I have for you is better than anything you could come up with? Can you believe that? Because you've said it, that I can do immeasurably more than I can think, ask, or imagine, right? You've said that you believe that, but can you believe it? And then can you trust my heart in it? That when it doesn't go according to what you think the process is, and you know, some girls know that I love that word process, that can you trust that each part of the process is ultimately taking you to a place that is far bigger and better than you can come up with yourself. And so good. I think I for a long time wanted to surrender so that I could get an outcome. I'd surrender, go, okay, I'll let go, because I know that I'm going to feel better and then I'll get what I want, right? And I wouldn't say that out loud. That wasn't my verbal process, but there was something in my mind or heart that thought, if I let this go, then I'm going to be headed in the right direction. Like, you just needed me to have light hands, right? Okay, I'll let it go. And then I would wait for this outcome. Right. And I remember last summer when Noah had brain surgery, sitting in the waiting room and him saying, which I just started writing about this the other day for the first time, but him saying to me, but you know, actually the surrender I'm looking for is not a surrender for an outcome. It's a surrender of what you think you need versus what you really need. So will you surrender what you think you need and want to what you really need, you know? And can you surrender the idea of an outcome? It's just the idea of who you're becoming. You know, can you surrender to not having an outcome? It was a really, obviously when your son's, I mean, I wouldn't have brought it up, God. I mean, the timing of that, of telling a mom in a waiting room to hand that over. I mean, timing. No, it was actually very good timing for me, because there was a deeper intimacy, a deeper level of trust that it brought me to. And that's really the whole thing here is, God isn't, some of those images we have of him, of taking away, of not giving us what we want. I mean, we're just not seeing our Father the way that he really is. And so I love, Jenna, the image of the cloud following, even though, I mean, maybe I'd turn the color to a bright pink with sparkles, you know, following with these blessings, you know, and they're so unexpected, which the unexpected blessing coming after unexpected disappointment, that's been a pattern.
Yes.
Disappointment that I've had, that's definitely a pattern. And not in a way, and when I say unexpected, like completely out of my ability to imagine.
Yeah.
Well, you can't, the outcome thing is so true. I mean, like type A planner here too. So maybe the more plans you have, the more disappointment you have. I don't know. Yeah.
Reagan's like, preach it.
I know. We shouldn't be disappointed. I don't know what I'm doing for dinner tonight. There's no disappointment there. Wheat cereal, done.
Done.
No.
So funny.
I
had that where I think if your outcome doesn't happen, then you're like, well, I don't know what else it could be, because that was the plan.
Yeah.
But, I don't even know. I've lost the outcome a lot of times and don't actually get that back. But there are other things that the Lord had in the works that are always so good and and always worth it. Like looking back, I love everything. I love all of it that the Lord has assigned us to, how it's worked out. I love Billings, Montana. I love the ministry stuff we've gotten to do. We're excited about 4 kids now. So, I think long term, I'm not ever disappointed with the outcomes that God assigns that are different than what mine were. But getting on board can take some adjustment.
The transition period, the process can be stretched out, and maybe for people like you and me, although I would say Jen, right? Her turnaround time was pretty solid.
I was actually thinking about that.
Right? I mean, my 4th child, my husband was in the shower. I looked at the pregnancy test. I threw it in the garbage and I put my head on the counter. And I'm like, no, and I like cried. Yeah, my turnaround time. I can't say what month are you at? 8 months?
Yeah, I think 27 weeks. Yeah, so 3rd trimester.
Yeah, 7 months. Yeah, I'm trying to remember how long it took me, but I think that my gestation period for the transition was much longer than 40 weeks. But man, my little Liam, he's awesome.
He's yummy.
He's so in love with Cece. It's adorable. But yeah, I mean, yeah. So like you say, that transition, the process, it could be lengthy, you know, depending on how long. Like Reagan, I was thinking about you guys. Like when you met Ryan, he was a missions pastor, but you guys had this thing about church planning, and then you planted a church and it is no longer, right? When you put your heart, your soul, like you said it, Jenna, when you put your heart, your soul, your mind, your prayers, your money, everything into this lane that God is having you run, and then it goes, poof, that's a big transition. Yeah. What would you say for you guys, Reagan? I mean, how did you guys handle that?
We honestly didn't want to even talk about it for like almost 2 years. Like when people talked to us, we did mention it, but it still was painful. You know, like I just related to like a bad breakup. Like whenever you hear about it, like it still hurts your heart. Or, I mean, this sounds bad because I do have friends that have walked through like miscarriages, but to be honest, like that is what it felt like for us. Like even now we still bring it up. Like it's a little less painful, but we're talking now, I think 6 years past the end of it. So even just now, and that doesn't, and I think that's the thing that we realized, it doesn't mean we love God any less. We feel like he loved us any less. I mean, we invested our entire savings and marketing ideas for our church because we felt like this is what God said, and we're both on board. It's like, absolutely. Who wants that? People in the movies need to know that our church is here. So we're going to advertise there, like mailers, door to door, like renting places, gimmicks, whatever, because we feel like God is in this. God wants us to do this. We're praying about everything. There wasn't a decision we made that we didn't feel like God said, don't do this, and we're doing it. And so I think that's what made it so hard when we closed it, because, you know, they said, I think I mentioned this, is like sometimes it takes more faith to stop something than it did to start it. And so for us, it's like when you get into this God dream, even if it's not working out how you thought, you're like, well, I'm staying in it because it's like, I'm still going. And it's like, eventually like, wow, I just know this is not what it's supposed to be. And God is like all but kicked us out the door. But the faithfulness, we did everything he wanted us to do. And so then it's like, when you look back in the first year, you're like, God, we did everything you want us to do. And now here we are without our church, without our money, wondering where we're supposed to do. Did we miss your calling? Should we have stayed on staff at this other church? Just all these questionings. But it's like, we still knew, we heard God so clearly there. So like now flash forward, but I guess I'm saying that it's like, certain things, depending on how big of the disappointment it can be, how big of the decision, I feel like we do a disservice to ourselves, and we do a disservice to others that are struggling, to say like, you know what? Yeah, the minute we closed the doors, we just knew God brought us to this amazing spot. No, it was still painful. We were in a good spot, but it was still, looking back at that time, it's not like we're like, even now, we do it all over again, because God did have a plan for us, probably because that showed our willingness to follow him regardless. Because it's easy to say like, I did that with God, and now here we are, the church is booming, our kids are just, everything's amazing. It's like, no, like sometimes we would doubt the results, and that just shows, it grows our faith more than when things are great. So yeah. I guess
I just say your line, and maybe Jen, this should be like, the quote today is that sometimes it takes more faith to stop something than to start it.
Right.
Again, I think that line right there is a huge piece of like spiritual maturity, because especially when something's going great,
right?
When it's going good, like life was good. For you, Jenna, with your 3 kids, I'm moving on to some new things. I've got some things in the work. I was in the same place. I'm like one step away from the dream, and then you're going to hand that off. I'm like, what? It was going good. This is what you called me to. Right. I was forced to do it. It wasn't a choice. I'd like to say at some point in my life, I will choose to let go. And I think that I have down the road, but it's usually still with a little like, fine. But a lot of faith into stopping something.
And even what you were saying about like, what do you say after? I think sometimes we don't want to say it out loud, because you feel like you're like resigning or something, or that I don't know, but I think that you can be honest and hold on to hope at the same time. Like I think you can be fully open about what that was like what that experience felt like, without letting go of who you believe God to be, and even I know you guys talking about like purpose and your own identity in Christ. I think you can still keep all of that intact and be honest at the same time. That you can, honesty and hopefulness don't have to be, just because you're hopeful doesn't mean it has to be all roses. You can still hold on to hope and be honest about the hard stuff, I think.
Well, we're all about honesty, authenticity, realness here at SVS. That's why I will not color these roots, ladies. But I do think that's what, like, we're looking for connection. And I think the whole point of even this community that we're growing, it's like, Jenna, she's like, I don't know what the She's Velvet Seal is. Like, again, it is, our whole purpose in being here isn't to hear ourselves talk or, come up with some great topic. It is to see, like, how real can we be with each other, and how can we help each other where we are? Like, we don't need to post a great picture of us looking all smiling by the fire with, a glass of wine or our book or whatever. Let's be like where we are. And I think when you can share, like, I love God, but I'm still sad about this, it lets somebody else be like, wow, I love him too, but I'm sad about this. And now we can together, like in your brokenness, sometimes you can come together and be like, let's just hold each other up. Because sometimes I think that's really what we're missing today. I feel like, even for myself personally, is like, I need women to hold me up. And my faith gets challenged by, even disappointment from God. Like, God sometimes challenges my faith. I want somebody else to come along and be like, I'm going to cry with you, and I'm going to love you and hold you up. And I feel like that's the
and
goal.
then you can heal, and then you can grow, and then you can take hold of the new things that God has for you.
Absolutely.
Until you grieve it, you're still kind of like stuck holding the loss, even if there's nothing, I think being honest is part of letting go of what didn't happen, so that you can take hold of what God does have for you.
I know. I agree.
Jamie, I know you're going to bring us home, but I just want to say for comments this week and today while people are watching, I would love to hear, we would all love to hear how you guys in the SVS community got through a redirection or a no from God, whether it was a verse or sometimes it is a book or a person. I would love, because we're going to all learn from everybody, and we're going to keep writing on this topic through the week. And one thing that I'm going to talk about, and you can comment on this, is how not to get sort of in the trap of, did I hear God and what is God's will? And I just want to throw out the idea that sometimes God just allows us to try things and just some freedom there. And so we'll handle that elsewhere. But just, let us know what worked for you and what you learned.
I'd love to read some comments real quick right now.
Yeah.
Magda said it's harder to let go in a way than to not have tried at all. Almost like ignorance is bliss. You don't know what you're missing.
No, I want to say I used to be afraid to pray for big things because I didn't know how I would cope with the disappointment. Like it would be easier to not pray for healing for something, because if it didn't happen, I didn't know what I would do. So I literally had to come to a point where I would have to say, I realize that if I step forward, I might be disappointed, and I'm okay with that. I had to choose, I'm willing to be disappointed, because that's something that might happen if I step forward right now. I can completely relate to that. Yeah.
Right. Well, and I remember going through something super hard where it felt like my whole foundation was being shaken up. And Jamie and I talked about this, where it's like, if you have a friendship where you're not super intimate, you're probably not going to talk about some of the rough things. Every friendship that's close, you say, hey, I'm not okay with that. You have an honesty there because you are that intimate. There's a safety net there to where you can have that intimacy to say, I didn't like that. I'm not okay with that. I'm frustrated with that. And I remember just being like, God and I are good. I'm okay being pissed at him right now. We're good. Like, he's okay with me. He knows I'm thinking it. And I just had this vision of him and I just wrestling. Like this wrestling match of like, I can't let go. And I think I had adopted, I don't think I necessarily planned my life out, but I think I had adopted certain things where, these were chapters I didn't write. I would have never put them in my book.
That's a good point.
And you just gave me a chapter that I wouldn't have written that if I was the author of my life, which is much more safer, feels safer. I wouldn't have written that chapter. And so it's like that wrestling match, but saying like, God and I have an intimacy. He's okay with me wrestling with him.
Yes.
Yeah. It's okay to be angry or disappointed or sad, or those are legitimate things that happen in a close relationship. Yeah,
exactly. And then just being able to work through that and trusting him with that honesty. Otherwise, like you said earlier, Jenna, you just stuff it and you feel like you're supposed to respond a certain way. And then just think how awkward that is in a friendship.
Yeah.
And then you get stuck there. You can't move on to new stuff. Yeah.
Right. So, and then Magda posted this, it's okay to not be okay. And then one thing Jamie, I remember telling me in the midst of it was, you got to feel it to heal it.
Yes, you do. Yes. Yeah. You can't address it until you bring it up. Yeah.
That came from your uncle, Reagan. I came to him and I'm like, he's not in full-time ministry now, but he was. And I went to him and I said, so I don't know if I've ever hated before. Like, I'm just going to be real. Like, I don't know if I have. I mean, I was 36, 37 at the time. And I'm like, but maybe what I'm feeling is hate. And I feel super guilty about feeling that way about someone, more of what they had done to me. Right. And I said, so I don't even know what to do with hate. I don't. And I feel like I should put a cloak over my head or something until it goes away. And that's where he said, so Jamie and Reagan's uncle, if you knew him, I'm like, he's just I don't know. I don't even know how to describe Reagan. You're gonna have to post a picture of me. He's just the most tender-hearted, loving guy. Oh my gosh. He's just
check it in the comments, ladies. Uncle Dawn, professional counselor right now.
And I just talked to your aunt last week and she's just as sweet and amazing. Anyway, so he says to me, so it's like pitching a tent, go ahead and pitch your tent with all your bitterness and all resentment and even your hate, pitch it right in his presence. He said, bring it and pitch your tent here. Now we're not going to stay here. We're going to camp here, but we're not going to make our home here. So go ahead and pitch your tent. And he goes, because God would say to you in that tent, you got to feel it before I can heal it, you know? And so I definitely, that one thing I'm like, okay. And then it was like floodgate, you know, I'm like, I'm feeling it. Here I am. I'm in the campground. So for sure. Well, girls, I mean, I think that this is a topic we could probably talk on, and people have story after story after story of disappointment. I love something that you said, Jen, about safety, that you wouldn't write these things for yourself, these chapters, because it doesn't feel safe to have those things. And I just want to challenge all of us, because that line challenged me. Where am I trying to find my safety? That safety in what makes sense, safety in logical steps, safety in something that we plan on or don't plan on, you know? And so I think God would like us to pitch that tent and go, I was feeling safer doing my thing than in your presence and under your wing, you know? So he can prove us wrong. You're way more safe right here than where you were headed. So ladies, we carry this conversation on during the week. We post and we kind of share some insights and like Cece and Jen said, share your stories, share your thoughts, and we can kind of continue that on Facebook and Instagram. But we also once a week write a little bit longer, kind of a love letter to each other of sorts, really, because we can't be on the phone with all of you. But really, we're sending an email each week to try and help solidify things or share another story, a little window into what God's doing in our life. And so if you want to jump into that conversation that we have outside of social media, I'm going to post the link right now. It's SVS Friends List. So I just put it in the comments so that you can jump on that and then receive that email on Sundays and just kind of be a part of that conversation. And please reply back to those emails. Those of you who are already getting those, I know Jen's really good about asking questions there, but reply back to those emails with your thoughts and your stories, because we certainly value you. Like Reagan said, it isn't here because we really like our own stories. It's because we really feel like our stories are a connection to yours. And there's just something about the power of this unity that goes beyond this Zoom, you know, or this live Facebook Live. So, all right, the link is in the comments, you guys. Anything else we want to wrap up with? She's the but still friend and Jenna Jones.
I have one thing. Jenna, will you come back?
Yeah, I would love it. Yeah, if you wanted to.
Yeah.
You guys are. I only started following maybe like a month ago, but I have loved it. Because I would follow you separately, and then I would see these faces that I know and love. I'm like, what's happening? Who are these people?
And now that's you.
Now, we all come together for one big one.
Yeah. And your dimples are as cute as can be.
Okay, I have one thing to say about Jen as we close. I just need you guys to know she is so bright. Like, she builds websites, and I'm such her cheerleader. Look at how cute she is. Like, I want to pinch those cheeks. And then she's got this brainiac brain behind those dimples. Whatever. I'm just saying. Okay, that's it.
Dimples are bigger when I have a rounder pregnancy face. They're a little.
We love you, Jenna. Thanks for coming. Thank you so much.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thanks,
Bye, you guys.
Bye. Bye.
Bye.